What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's tons of news to go over here this week, but I first want to briefly mention that if you hear some rumbling, that's because there's some thunderstorms in the vicinity, and so that is why. So I apologize if you hear that in the background. But anyway, moving on to the news this week. The first story here is Mazda has revealed the 2021 Mazda3 2.5 Turbo. And this is the first Mazda model to be actually branded as Turbo. Usually they're just 2.5T whenever this engine is in other Mazda vehicles, but they're calling this the 2.5 Turbo. And there's supposedly a little turbo badge on the back of it. We can't see that badge because Mazda, for some reason, announced this car with only two shadowy images that barely show us anything on the car. So not sure why they're playing games with that, but you're going to have to use your imagination as far as, what this is going to look like with its little enhancements. But there's not much to imagine here because, unfortunately, it seems like they haven't done much beyond the engine. So it runs that 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder, but unfortunately it's only paired up with all-wheel drive and automatic transmissions only. No manual, no front-wheel drive version. You can get it in both sedan and hatchback forms, though, so that's good. There's some choice there. And you're also going to be able to get it with a base model version, so they're not going to force you to go up to the top trim to get this engine like you often have with, for example, Mazda forces you into the premium trim to get the manual in the Mazda 3 hatch. They're not going to do any of that kind of stuff here with the turbo motor. You will be able to get a more basic trim with that engine. Anyway, that engine though is the same 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder you get in any other Mazda model that does 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque on 93 octane gas. It'll do 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque on 87. Mazda does claim that the engine is tuned uniquely for the Mazda 3 here, and they say it will deliver the unique driving dynamics expected by our most passionate drivers. But sadly, that mentality hasn't transferred over to the rest of the vehicle here. So it gets the same exact brakes, same suspension, and same chassis setup. Is all identical to a regular Mazda 3. So they said that, we have already made those things very good on the car, so there's no reason to add. But I mean, you would think, at least with the suspension, you'd retune it for the extra weight of the turbo and all that stuff over the front end of the vehicle. So yeah, there's no upgrades here or anything, and that's kind of perplexing to me. The styling is also barely different. It gets a slightly different front lip, a turbo badge on the back, larger exhaust tips, which again I wish we could see, unique wheels, and a spoiler on either the hatch or a trunk lid spoiler, depending on which version you get. So hopefully we see some images of what all that stuff looks like relatively soon. But on the other end of the Mazda 3 spectrum, they also are bringing back the 2-liter Skyactiv G engine for the Mazda 3 in its base trim. And so I think this was done because Mazda 3 sales haven't been great with this new generation. I think it's because it's a couple grand more expensive than most of the other competitors, which most of the competitors are slower. They have less horsepower, and a lot of people in this segment don't care about having 186 horsepower in their compact sedan. So this one, you get 150 horsepower or 155 and I think 150 pound-feet of torque. So you get a little bit less power. That should bring down the price, although they haven't announced pricing for this yet. But that should make it a little more competitive and be more attractive to those who want, more affordable Mazda 3. But apparently that engine's only available in the base trim, which means if you get that engine, you don't get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or anything else, which is kind of silly that they still lock you out of that stuff and don't make it standard. But anyway, that's how they're doing it. So we don't have any pricing on that turbo version either, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Again, you can get a regular non-turbo hatch with the stick up to, almost 30 grand already. The turbo stuff, you're looking at a low $30,000 vehicle. I mean, granted, you do have more power, more torque than something like a Volkswagen GTI, all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to have the suspension or the brakes to back it up. So I don't really know who this vehicle is for. I think the enthusiasts want something more hardcore, and they're not getting that, and they'll go to the competition, even if the competition has a little bit less horsepower. And then, obviously, people that are luxury buyers probably aren't going to care about having the extra power. So I'm not sure how well this is going to do. I was hoping for at least a little bit more, slightly bigger brakes, slightly more, suspension setup. I don't know. But Anyway, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out for them. They say that the regular Mazda 3s, including that new base engine, are going to be available next month, and the turbo is going to be available late this year. So please let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. I'll be very curious to hear what you guys think of how Mazda played that. In some other sport compact news, Hyundai has teased the Elantra N-Line that's coming soon, and looks even more aggressive than the regular Elantra, which was already pretty bold. Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be very similar to the Elantra Sport as far as powertrain, 201 horsepower, turbo, 1.6 liter 4-cylinder, that kind of stuff. But we'll have to wait for all the details, which I guess should be coming fairly soon because they say this is going to be on sale this fall. So cool to see that little teaser, and hopefully we see a full reveal soon. Toyota has revealed the Corolla Cross in Thailand, but it's most likely we'll be getting a very, very similar model, if not identical, here in the States pretty soon as well, because this was on the leaked product timeline for Toyotas and what they're going to be launching here, and I believe that's for the States. So I think this will be slotting in between the CHR and the RAV4. I'm personally not a big fan of the look. Some people say it looks fine. They think it'll sell well. I'm sure it'll be, totally good, but I was expecting it to look a little bit more like the Corolla, I guess, than it does. It seems like it doesn't share much with the Corolla, aside from the name and the interior. The interior looks pretty much identical to the Corolla, so that's where you see the resemblance. Otherwise, the outside is totally different. And as far as the platform and stuff, it's actually on the same platform and wheelbase as the CHR, not the Corolla. It's a couple inches larger than a CHR, though, so that's why I'd be slotting above that model. And I believe this should have all-wheel drive, but that detail wasn't given, because we know the CHR is only front-wheel drive, and of course you can get the RAV4 with the all-wheel drive. So I'm guessing they'll give you the option for this, but it could be front-wheel drive only as well. We'll have to wait and see. At least in Thailand here, it's going to be running a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder engine, and then there's going to be a hybrid 1.8 liter engine option as well. They all run through CVTs. We'll likely get something similar here in the States, but I'm thinking we'll probably get the Corolla engine we have here in the States, the 2-liter motor that does 168 horsepower. I'm guessing that might be what we end up getting here for our version. We'll have to wait and see again. Not a whole lot of details here, since it's not the US version yet. So we'll have to wait a little more for that, but at least we know what it's probably going to look like. So interesting to see that. Lamborghini has revealed the very cool Sian Roadster this week. It has the same setup as the regular Sian, meaning a naturally aspirated V12 combined with an electric motor for 819 horsepower combined. It does a 2.9 second 0 to 60, 217 mile per hour top speed. And like the regular Sian, it has a super capacitor to store electricity instead of a battery to help keep the weight down, so it's not too heavy. They're only building 19 of these, though. They're all sold already, of course, and no price has been announced, but it's going to probably be over $2 million. The one thing, though, you're not going to get for your $2 million is a roof, because Autoblog has learned that supposedly it will not have any roof at all. So you're going to have to plan your delivery day very carefully and plan your drives very carefully as well. Either that or bring some tarp with you or something, I guess. Kind of crazy that they didn't bother to, engineer some type of little flimsy thing like they have on other Roadster, Lamborghinis in the past. But anyway, interesting to see that reveal. I think it looks awesome nonetheless, even if it is super rare and super expensive. Lexus this week has revealed the 2021 LS refresh, and so it's going to get this restyled front end with these bigger headlights are the biggest change. The back end, you get a new rear bumper and new taillights and stuff, but I think the most noticeable change is going to be on the inside, where you're going to get a new 12.3 inch touchscreen now that's been added, and there's also a digital rearview mirror now you can get, along with redesigned front seats for better comfort, and a bunch of other little small changes, especially under the skin. They made a bunch of other really tiny changes, like there's minor adjustments to the adaptive suspension, the motor mounts are slightly different, there's more rigid stabilizer bars, and even the run flat tires have been tweaked to be a little less stiff. So very minor things, but as I found with the Civic Type R, very minor changes do add up to larger changes overall in the driving experience. So I think, maybe Toyota and Lexus are taking that same approach here with the new LS. Also in certain markets, that new Teammate highway driving tech that they debuted a couple of months ago is going to be available, which allows the LS to combine its adaptive cruise system with lane keep assist to provide automated lane changes now, and so that's going to be cool, but there's no info as far as whether or not that tech's coming to the States, because this again is also another reveal that was for the rest of the world, and we'll be getting more details on the US version of the new LS here sometime later this summer, I guess, and that'll include pricing and all that kind of stuff. Toyota is also making a few changes to the TRD Pro versions of the Tacoma, Tundra, 4Runner, Sequoia, all for the 2021 model year here. And so they get this new lunar rock color you see in these pictures, along with retuned Fox internal bypass shocks and black TRD wheels that are now wrapped in Nitto Terra Grappler all-terrain tires. So they didn't say, why they made those changes or what it improves, but anyway, they're going to be available this fall. So cool to see that, and probably one of the last versions of these before we finally see new Tacomas and Tundras here in the next year or two. Mercedes has also revealed some of the tech here for the next generation S-Class, for the 2021 version that's coming here, I guess, in a few months. And so it's going to get a new evolution of the MBUX system that runs on this huge 12.8-inch OLED touchscreen display that has haptic feedback, can sense when you hover your finger over it. The car also responds to a wider range of voice commands now, which means they also are saying you're not going to have to say, "Hey Mercedes," before you can do voice commands. So I'm guessing it's going to annoy the owners even more, because now you don't even have to say Mercedes. You'll just be talking, and the car is going to be randomly trying to change things just based on your conversation. And there's also going to be new gesture controls, which are also certain to annoy owners, because even one of the gestures is just lifting up your hand and going like this. So if you're just brushing your hair, or if you're like, what the heck, if someone cuts you off or something, that could be taken as the gesture to open the moonroof, which if it's raining or something or cold, probably isn't great. So hopefully you'll be able to disable the gesture stuff if you want, because I know things continue to improve and get higher and higher with the tech and stuff, but gesture stuff has always been very, very sketchy and hard to do consistently, it seems, in every application so far. So reserving my wow for that until it actually is something I'd try out if it actually works well. Other stuff here, though, there's even a chit-chat function, which the car can actually talk to you and answer questions about random stuff and have a conversation with you. Apparently it can make animal noises and all kinds of bizarre things. So they really tried to, I guess, pull a Tesla with this one and think a little bit outside the box. There's also some more practical stuff, like there's a heads-up display that has augmented reality for navigation and other features like that. So that'll be very handy, and that's something that Audi's rolling out and many others as well. So that's something that we're going to see in a lot of vehicles here in the 2020s. Other stuff, though, it's going to have profiles for users. They can be activated either with a fingerprint scanner that's right there by the screen, or facial recognition that it supposedly has. So that's cool, and that's something that Subaru actually pioneered with their driver watch system or whatever. But anyway, there's also tons of other tech features. I could go through a whole list of stuff and talk about it for another 10 minutes, but those ones are the most notable things. And again, we don't have a full reveal here on the S-Class yet. It should be coming relatively soon because it is a 2021 model year vehicle, which means technically they should be available before the end of the year or something around there. So we'll have to wait and see. Audi has revealed the Q4 Sportback E-Tron concept. Now, it's a concept, but it's not too much of a concept aside from lacking door handles, basically, and maybe a few other minor tweaks. But they're saying the production model should come sometime next year. And it's just a sportier roof version of the regular Q4 e-tron they've already shown us that's also coming next year. They run an 82 kilowatt battery that can do 279 miles of range on the European WLTP test. It has 2 electric motors for all-wheel drive and 301 horsepower, but there's also going to be a rear-wheel drive only version with less power and a smaller battery. That'll do 310 miles of range because it doesn't have to power a second motor. And 0 to 60 is 6.3 seconds. I believe that's for both of them, but it's interesting. It should be pretty quick there still. It'll also get the cool OLED lights like you saw in the 2021 Q5 that I talked about last week, and so cool to see all that. And this is a story that's a little bit of a bummer to report. While we wait for the next generation Subaru WRX and WRX STI, unfortunately I do not have any new news. I know so many people keep asking me about that, and I'm just as impatient as everyone else. But in the meantime, Subaru was kind enough to reveal yet another special edition of the current generation WRX. Now, this is only for the Japanese market, so it's not even available to us anyway. But it's called the WRX S4 STI Sport Sharp. And the Sharp is a hashtag sign, but anyone who's driven one of these Subarus in the past 10 years with that driving mode selector knows that's what the Sport Sharp thing is about. And so it just adds a bunch of stuff from the STI parts catalog that's already been available for years. And it makes the ride and the handling better, and they have, a drop-in air filter and a sportier exhaust. again, just basically they're like, here's the whole parts catalog from STI. Let's throw it on a car and make it limited edition. And they did that. They're only making 500 of these. And amazingly, they all have been sold out already in Japan. I don't know who's jumping at the opportunity to buy one of these, especially since this is only coming with a CVT for this version. I don't know why anyone's excited about this. I mean, it's nice, and the current WRX is, very impressive and stuff, but somebody please wake me up whenever the new WRX is finally here, because I am really losing interest in all these special editions and stuff. And some other much-awaited news here, though. The Bronco is nearly here. Next week, they're revealing it on Monday, actually, and it's going to be showing both the two-door and four-door versions of the Bronco, as well as Ford has revealed they're going to be showing off the Bronco Sport too. So even though that's a totally separate model based on the Escape, that's going to be bundled in with this presentation because it's branded as a Bronco, and it's going to be a whole sub-brand, even though it still will be called Ford Bronco. Thankfully, they're not cutting it off completely, but yeah. And so they have a few little tidbits that they revealed here. For example, they're all going to have built wild designations, which is kind of similar to the trail rated thing that Jeep does, meaning they're four-wheel drive only and have proven themselves on a rigorous off-road testing circuit to give owners confidence to go over any type of terrain. And that's what the whole GOAT thing that was trademarked a while back is, go over any terrain. That's what that means. And also, about the Bronco Sport, thanks to an anonymous source, I was able to obtain a Windows sticker for a Bronco Sport, and it's kind of cut off, and it doesn't show pricing or anything like that, because it's a pre-production Windows sticker. That's why this is not for sale on it and stuff. But it does give a few little details here on some features. It confirms that at least this Badlands trim of the Bronco Sport will be running a 2-liter EcoBoost engine, an 8-speed automatic transmission. It also appears to have off-road suspension, terrain management system, trail control, front camera, active grille shutters, bash plates, under-seat storage, which I'm guessing is similar to what they have in the new F-150, and even zipper pockets is listed there. It also appears to be running the older Sync 3 8-inch screen, which seems kind of odd, and so that's why sometimes with these leaked window stickers, I learned this back whenever the bullet window stickers were leaking out, sometimes some of the information isn't totally correct, and there's some stuff that's just in there as filler stuff and things like that, so I'm not sure how far along this window sticker is. So, take this with a grain of salt, and we'll have to wait and see what actually comes here, on Monday. But kind of interesting to hear some of those cool features. And in some other off-road Ford news, Car Expert, the Australian website, has a new report giving some details about the next generation Ranger Raptor, which they claim is coming to America, and it's going to be a 2022 model vehicle coming next year, along with the regular next-gen Ranger, which supposedly, I guess, is coming next year. I thought it wasn't coming until, 2022 as a 2023 model vehicle, but I guess maybe, it's going to come a little sooner, which is great if that's true. And so, anyway, they have a screenshot here that suggests it's going to be running the 2.7-liter EcoBoost engine here in the States, and kind of suggests to them that it's going to be coming to the States because of that screenshot, supposedly. And sounds great to me. I'm excited if that's the case. They believe it's going to end up with about 325 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque in that Raptor application. Aside from that, expect the usual Raptor enhancements to the suspension and the body and stuff. And it's just great news that the Ranger's coming fairly soon, and we'll get the Raptor version finally this time. As far as how it's going to look, there was a leaked image, I believe, of a Ranger a while back, sometime last year. And it looks like it's going to be very blocky and stuff, and it'll be very interesting. We got that. We got the new Frontier coming. This whole segment's really heating up, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. But cool to hear that. Another little speculation piece here. According to Autocar, they have a new report reporting that Jaguar has trademarked the EV-type name, suggesting the F-type successor could be fully electric. But according to Autocar's intel, Jaguar still hasn't decided what they're going to do. Apparently, they also have a pretty viable plan to do a gas-powered thing still as well. And so they're kind of trying to decide, do we go gas again, or we make this all electric? I think obviously doing a fully electric sports car is going to mean really hacking up the I-Pace platform or whatever in order to make it fit with a sports car, which might be kind of compromised, and they can't do any kind of one-off thing unless they want to work with another company or something like that. So we'll have to see how that pans out. Obviously, the cheaper option would be to keep it gas, and I think generally that would probably also make all the F-Type fans the happiest, but that doesn't really move the ball forward either, so we'll have to wait and see what they end up doing with that, if they're going to actually use the EV-type name or not, but interesting to hear that. And I mean, the fact that they're this early with their whole debate about what direction to even go means we're talking at least probably 5 years, I'm guessing, before we even see a new version. So that refreshed F-Type we got a few months back is going to have to last a good long while, I think. But that's fine because the F-Type is fantastic just the way it is. But anyway, the last news story this week is Chevy has announced the production of the Sonic will be ending this October to make room at the factory for the new bolt-based crossover that's coming next year. And so the reason for the end of the Sonic, of course, was the declining demand, poor sales. They actually sold less Sonics than they did Corvettes last year, and also I think they managed to sell more of just about everything. The Bolt sold more. I mean, it did. Sonic did terribly. So it's understandable for sure, but it's the same thing. It just killed the Yaris a couple of weeks ago here in the States, and the same thing it killed off the Fiesta here in the States. We don't get any of those small things anymore. And Chevy still does have the Spark, which is built in South Korea, so that potentially could continue to be built and not really affect Chevy's North American operations a whole lot. So we'll have to see if they keep that around. And that's just a badge engineered version of the same car that's sold under various names all around the world, including in Europe it's called the Opel Carl, which I didn't know that was a real name, but someone named a car the Carl, which is kind of hilarious. I didn't know that. But yeah, so as far as here in the States, that leaves Chevy with only the Malibu as their only sedan if you don't count the Bolt, because the Impala's done, and like I said, the Spark's a hatchback, so it doesn't really count as a sedan. But they're doing the same thing Ford did with killing off all their cars. It's just they're being more subtle about it and doing it a little more slowly. But anyway, crazy to see that. I mean, it's not like the Sonic was an amazing car or anything, but they did have the RS version, which was a little sportier and stuff. So it's always sad to see any car come to an end usually. So bummer that that's going away, and there's one less affordable option for those out there looking for something well under $20,000. But yeah, so that's it for all the news this week, guys. So let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please continue to stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.